How much of a...
You are totally live.
All right, I guess we're totally live, Webby. You tell me when we really need to start this officially, though.
We are officially starting.
All right, we're officially starting. My name is Doug Peters. I'm the athletic director at Minnesota State University Moorhead, and we are in new territory right now, doing a live interactive with anybody that's out there paying attention through our website, through YouTube, and using a variety of things like Twitter, Facebook, all those sorts of things. So first of all, if anybody's out there, thank you for joining us. Hopefully I'm just not talking to myself here on this computer screen. But we got a lot of great things going on here at Minnesota State University Moorhead with the Dragons. And a lot of people have said, hey, Doug, why are you doing this? Why are you sitting here? And I think in today's day and age with the technology we have available, we might as well take advantage of it. And people like to interact. They don't want to just go read on our website. So here's a chance for you to ask live questions about anything you want. I'll do my best to answer them. And we'll see how this half an hour goes. So thanks everybody for tuning in. You can submit questions through Twitter, Facebook, what else, Webby?
YouTube.
And YouTube, if you've got them. So we've got some questions that have come in throughout the week. They deal with a variety of things. Obviously, with a recent update, we did a press conference to update people, and I know I was getting hammered on the air on the radio shows about what they did a press conference to announce that they're still working on it. Well, yes, we did. We did a press conference to update people on where we're at with NCAA Division I hockey and our exploration of that because so many people were asking. It seemed to be the best way to communicate to people instead of taking 37 million phone calls one by one and doing different interviews with each of the media outlets. Seemed to make the most sense to put all four people, who are very busy people, in a room together online and answer the questions that have been being asked. So from that came some other questions. The first question came from Frad Marvin 95 through Twitter. Are there any NCAA issues with MSUM being a Division II school and adding a Division I sport? Well, I'm going to tell you there are. There are some pieces with that, with some legislation that recently passed. But what it comes down to is this. The legislation that recently passed, the way it's been interpreted by one of our consultants is Division II schools cannot compete at the Division I level unless there isn't a championship offered at that level. Currently, there are no championships available for Division II ice hockey. There are some schools competing at the Division II level, but there are no national championship opportunities. And so that opens the door for us to compete at the Division I level. You know, schools like Bemidji State, Minnesota State University, Mankato, St. Cloud State, they're all Division I, II schools competing at the Division I level. So yes, there is some legislation on the books about that, but the area that we are looking at this under is that the NCAA does not offer a Division II ice hockey championship, and we need a place to play. Hence, we would have the opportunity to play Division I. Yes, there is a process we need to go through to achieve that, but that opportunity is there. Question number 2, they're coming in here a little bit, which is kind of fun. Question number 2 comes from Will Devine. A Minnesota State school can play their games in the state of North Dakota. Crazy. That was a comment on Facebook. Crazy when you think about it in looking at it from a state standpoint. But last I checked, our teams competed in North Dakota, South Dakota, Iowa, Nebraska, Wisconsin, Florida, Arizona. We're all over the country playing games. The difference with this is that our home venue would be out of state, and realistically, out of state is 8 miles away. We're talking 8 miles from doorstep to doorstep. It's not that far. Not really an issue since we play all over the place already. Off Eric Peterson, our beat writer, which we appreciate all the work he does for Dragon Athletics, off his blog from someone named Bison Fan. The comment is, NDSU is the 800-pound gorilla in athletics. If NDSU is saying the risk of a hockey program isn't worth the potential reward, shouldn't MSUM heed that advice? I don't want to put any words in NDSU's mouth. At this point, I haven't necessarily seen anything that says NDSU says it's a risk. What I've heard and how I interpret what NDSU has said is this is not the direction we want to go in right now. We are focusing on Division I, a broad-based Division I athletic program. Our entire athletic program is Division I. We are focusing on that, and right now, with that recent transition to Division I and the things we're trying to do, we're not it's not a priority for us to pursue hockey as a sport. That's my take on where NDSU is at. All respect to NDSU. They're doing a great job. Excited to see them have their success. Excited to play them in men's basketball this year. Hopefully someday we'll get to play them in women's basketball. Wouldn't mind playing them in volleyball either. When you start to look at the perennial success that Coach Blake has had on the volleyball court and that Coach Nelson has had on the women's basketball court, would love to see those games. You know, our philosophy from a scheduling standpoint, how I've tried to have it is we'll try and play anybody, anytime, anywhere, rules permitting. And, you know, we'll continue to play Concordia as long as they want to play us, because I think our community wants to see that game, even though it doesn't do anything for us from a national qualification standpoint. And we would love to have the opportunity to play NDSU in all of our sports. And thank you to Coach Phillips and also to Coach Moeller over there, and, you know, Coach Mon and Coach Kish, who have competed with us on the softball, the men's basketball, and the wrestling side of things. So now we've got some other questions that have come in other areas. One of them came in from YouTube from Torier 2010. And the question is, we already have underfunded athletic programs, and it upsets me that we're talking about adding a completely funded Division I program before we can fully fund the athletic programs we have. Happy late birthday to Jim Peterson, but I got to sit down with Jim Peterson yesterday and Danny Hallock, and we were two alums, and we were having conversation, and Mike Skoglund, we were talking a little bit about the history of MSUM and where we're trying to go athletically, and we were talking about the success that the Dragons had late 80s, early 90s, and we were talking about where's the pinnacle, where did it hit the high point, and then where did it start to go downhill. And, you know, we identified that time in the mid-'80s, 1984. Things were going really well. Some decisions were made, and it just started to waterfall down, albeit very slowly. So, Tori, how I look at this is where our Dragon Athletics is at today, or even the day I started 4 years ago, it took a couple decades to get there. You know, we have a strong, rich history, unfortunately, with a lot of change within leadership and a not strong focus on athletics. We started to struggle a little bit when the Dragons went from NAIA to Division II. Still something we struggle with today, but I think in the last 4 years we've made some significant progress towards being more competitive and growing our funding levels. When we start to talk about adding a Division I hockey program to that, you know, you have to go back and listen to all the different things that we've said. It is a completely externally funded piece. You know, there is no risk to tuition dollar or state taxpayer dollar. And as we look at those things and we look at saying, okay, if we want to add this sport, you know, here's a way to do it. And the idea of Division I hockey, it's not just something for MSUM, it's something for our entire community. And there are people that are interested in making that happen that aren't interested in necessarily supporting Minnesota State University Moorhead. So when you start to look at the potential for support, you start to think about it in the terms of there's people that will give us money specifically for this, but not other things. And now, how can we use that to our advantage? And when you start to get into our business plan, even the one that we put out in 2009 and where we're at today, you look at how it's built, and it's done in a first-class way, because that's the vision both Edna and I have for athletics at this institution. Is we want our athletic program to be just as good as our academic program. We won't even get into the conversation about which school in our community has the highest placement in med school out of the 3 colleges and universities, because this is an athletic show. But our goal is to have athletics be as good as academics is on our campus. In order to do that, you've got to put the resources there to make it happen. So as we start talking about adding a sport, we don't want to add a sport and struggle to be able to have it happen, especially a high-profile sport like Division I hockey. So as we talk about fully funding Division I hockey, and that starts to roll, you know, we've got the obvious things within the business pro forma. You know, the full scholarship funding, the salaries to pay the coaches. On the behind-the-scenes things, though, are things like increasing our sports medicine athletic training services, increasing our administrative support in the marketing and public relations piece, same thing in compliance, same thing in just plain and pure administration, as far as all the paperwork and all the things that need to get done is in the daily course of an athletic year. And one of the things is we look at adding these two sports, and I say two because it's both men's and women's, as we look at adding these two sports and we're looking at enhancing and supplementing our existing athletic department staff, that adds strength to the rest of it. I would challenge you to find a school out there where administrators and support staff that are working with hockey aren't also working with other sports. So it's a way and it's a venue to be able to add support to our other sports at the same time. I know I've talked a lot about that, not trying to talk in circles, but we'll jump over to another question which ties into that, is how will adding a D1 hockey program affect the already standing athletic programs, from at Tori Hoffman. And then a similar one via Facebook from Morgan Eberhardt. MSUM does not have enough money now. Why would they add another mediocre sport? So first thing, as we've talked about, not looking at adding mediocre sports, looking at trying to do things in a first-class way and being in a position to be highly competitive, because that highly competitive side, at the end of the day, drives revenue. And if we're able to drive some revenue, it's going to have a positive impact on the rest of our athletic department. So when you start to look at how we've built our business plan on the hockey side, it's very conservative. It's based on 80% ticket sales on the men's side and around 1% ticket sales on the women's side, based on indicators from national benchmarks and what other schools have done. So to start off with, when we start talking about the funding levels we're looking for, we are very conservative. And the margin that we're looking at, it's operating in the black moving forward, but the margin that we're operating in is minimal because it is so conservative. Now, I think that if I were to go out right now and announce that we're off into a season ticket campaign for our hockey, I think we would be able to sell out. That's my personal opinion. We've got some things that indicate that would happen when you look at the Winnipeg Jets, who opened up their season ticket piece and they were sold out within 17 minutes. You think that we're in the middle of a hockey country and in the middle of the hockey footprint in the United States, and we would be able to sell more than 80% of our tickets. But again, trying to have a conservative approach to this. Question from Trix99: would Dave Morinville, the high school Spuds coach, be a candidate to lead the program? First off, props to Dave Morinville. He's been in our community for a long time, and he's been a staunch supporter of hockey at all levels. Currently right now he's coaching over at Moorhead High, and he's had some great seasons. But again, he's got that stigma around his neck. Everybody said, well, where's the state championship? State championships are very difficult to win, but it's fun to have a first-class program in our community that is competing at the highest of levels. And you go back into his time at club hockey at NDSU, what he's done at St. Cloud and also at the pro ranks. We're very lucky to have him in our community. At the same time, we're sitting here and we're trying to get our business plan together. We're trying to create the money to do these things. We're not ready to start talking about coaching candidates and who we want to be able to hire. What we've talked about is we want to be able to hire a premier coach to lead a premier program. So we've got some live questions coming in right now, and I'm trying to make sure that we aren't duplicating some of the things that I have here that are up. A question from the iHealth Tube via YouTube. Doug, how realistic is hockey, and if the money isn't there in the next 3 months, then what? Well, first of all, one of the reasons why we're doing this is I get to control what's being said. I'm not being edited. Nobody's pushing a button, cutting me off. Nobody's taking my words and adding some different things to it. So one of the things that I talked about in our press conference about a week and a half ago is we're not setting any deadlines regarding Division I hockey right now. What I said and was very careful to say is I believe our greatest window of opportunity is within the next 3 months. And that looks at it in a variety of ways, and it's factors that are outside of our control. Right now, UND, Duluth, I can't name them all, have chosen to leave the WCHA and form their own league. So right now, when you look at the Big Ten forming, the new, they've been calling it the National. You've got the Big Ten Conference, you've got the National. Those two leagues are forming. The WCHA and the CCHA are in a little bit of flux about where they're going. And right now, I believe they're trying to make decisions about what size leagues they want to have and who they want to attract to be in their leagues. And I think there are going to be some significant decisions made on the early side within 3 months, and we want to be in a position to be able to take advantage of that. So when you say in the next 3 months, I'm not sure. I know for our greatest opportunity for success, we need to have it happen quickly. I do think that hockey in our community is very realistic. I think being able to raise the money is very realistic. It just takes some time to be able to do that. Last night, I was fortunate enough, Dave Morinville invited me over to the end of the Moorhead Youth Hockey golf tournament fundraiser that they do, and I got to talk with that crowd a little bit. And one of the things I talked about is when I say $37 million, or President Szymanski says $37 million, everybody goes, ooh, and just focuses on that number and doesn't hear what we're talking about next. So $37 million, yes, that's a significant amount of money. What people aren't hearing is, A, we have 40% of that raised. We are 40% of the way to $37 million. The other part that people aren't hearing is the $12 to $14 million economic impact that this will have on our community. And you go, well, okay, I hear that. But no, do you really hear it? I would challenge you right now as if I walked into wherever you're sitting and I said, hey, who'd that come? Health Tube, give me $37 and for the next 100 years, I will give you $12 to $14 back a year. What do you think? Would you give me the $37 if there was a guarantee you were going to get $12 to $14 back every year for the rest of your life? I think most people would make that investment. And that's the way that we're trying to get people to think is, yes, $37 million, that is an incredible sum of money. There is no doubt about that. But the $37 million allows us to endow this program so that it's here forever. It's not going to go anywhere. It's got its scholarships, it's got its coaching staff, it's got its travel expense, it's got all of those things covered. And the benefit is, as Bruce Furness said, it's a win-win-win situation. It does some things for Minnesota State University Moorhead. It does some things for the amenities in our community, allows people to have something else to watch. But equally important, it brings $12 to $14 million into our community, and everyone is going to benefit from that. So I think that's a huge thing that I want to be able to communicate to people is, yeah, it's a big number, but let's get past that number. And I think when you start to look at what our community has accomplished, even though there have been naysayers, and I'm copying Bruce Furness right now, is you look at the Red Hawks, you look at the Fargo Dome. People saying, no, you can't do that. Even Division I athletic department over at NDSU, how many naysayers were out there saying, oh, this can't be done? I have not walked into anybody's office. I haven't talked to anybody. I haven't gotten an email or a Twitter or anything on FaceTube that says Division I hockey in Fargo Moorhead is a bad idea. It's not the right idea. I think everybody agrees that it's firmly the right idea. What people are struggling with is that Minnesota State University Moorhead wants to be the conduit for bringing it to our community. People aren't used to MSUM athletically doing these sorts of things. And as we start to sit down with people and talk about why and how and here's how it's going to work, people walk away shaking their heads and says, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And it is a great idea for our community. So going back to your question, Health Tube, I think it's realistic. I think our community wants it. Our community needs it. And we're going to do our best to make it happen. We're either going to make it happen or I'm going to go down trying. Jumping into some other questions that we've got, Les Bakke, one of our longtime supporters, great guy on campus as an IT guy for many years. He's a veteran. He's very involved in our community. He's doing a lot of different things right now. Has been a past board member with our booster club, Dragonfire, and continues to come to events and be involved and be a Dragonfire member. Dragonfire is our athletic booster club. It is the fundraising arm for our athletic department for our scholarship fund. All the proceeds that Dragonfire raises go directly to athletic scholarships. And right now we're getting ready to kick off our 2011-2012 membership piece. And within it, it's very similar to what it's been in the past. There are different levels that you can sign up for, and you've got two choices. So hypothetically, if you decide you want to sign up and give $1,200 to the athletic scholarship fund at MSUM, you can do it. And you say, I don't want any benefits. I want all the tax deduction. I want it all to go straight to scholarship. You can do that. We'll recognize you in our game programs and those sorts of things. The other option is there are also some benefits that come with that, whether it be season tickets, whether it be some reserved parking, whether it be some invites to some special events. There are a variety of benefits that come from being a Dragonfire member. So with that, we will be kicking that off here. Hopefully August 1st is I think the day we've identified, and we're looking for as many Dragonfire members as we can, because basically what it is, it's saying, hey, I support providing opportunities to the student athletes at MSUM to get a great education, compete at a high level, and develop as a person. So Les, thanks for that question. Jumping on into another question is watching live on YouTube is TW Brain, and I'm going to read his question. With the somewhat recent failures of Wayne State and Findlay hockey, along with Fairfield and Iona, why do you think it will succeed at MSUM, and how will you make it succeed when it didn't work in states that have pretty good hockey? Michigan, Ohio, New York, and Connecticut. That's a great question. You look at what's gone on in college hockey, there's a reason. In my research, and I could be wrong on this, the school that added, college university that added hockey most recently was Mankato, and I think they started in 1997. And in the meantime, there have been some schools that have dropped having hockey, and some schools that are considering it, but nobody's added it. And we're the ones that MSUM has talked about it more publicly than anybody else. So when you start thinking, why do I think we can have success? I think we can have success in the fact that one of our biggest assets is the University of North Dakota is 90 miles away, and people understand what a high level of Division I hockey is. And there are a lot of UND alums living in our community. It's kind of interesting that there are 20,000 University of North Dakota alums living in the Fargo-Moorhead community. 4,000 of them have season tickets. These are just estimates based on information that we've gotten from some of our consultants. And so you look at it and you go, well, that's a pretty good number. That's almost a quarter. And one of the pieces that doesn't get talked about a whole lot is how come only 4,000 people have season tickets? Well, 4,000 people have season tickets, and only 4,000 people have season tickets because that's all of it that's available. When they moved into the new Ingolstadt Arena, and yes, there's 11, 12,000 seats in there, but there weren't that many extra tickets when you start taking into account what you have to do for visiting teams and students and those sorts of things. So I think we are in a hockey-rich country as far as who is competing in hockey in our neck of the woods, which are a little bit different than when you start to look at, I lost it here for a second, that looks at, and I'm laughing because Webby's working behind the screens. Here's a shout out to you, Webby. He's working behind the scenes, trying to get stuff in. He's going to hop in here so we get a little wave from Webby. There we go. All right, that's part of the fun of doing this live. We can do whatever we want, Webby. And just for the record, I'm going to thank Coach Walthall, who buys the M&Ms that are in Webby's bottom drawer that I'll be eating when we get done. Webby likes M&Ms, peanut M&Ms, by the way. But when you ask why we think it can be successful is most people don't understand what Fargo-Moorhead is. Fargo-Moorhead is, and it's really not even Fargo-Moorhead anymore. I'll take a page out of the Chamber of Commerce. It's the Fargo-Moorhead West Fargo Chamber of Commerce. There are 4 communities lined up right in a row here, and there's a mass of about 200,000 people. And there are about, I want to guess there's about 2,500 people playing hockey between K through 12, between youth hockey all the way through high school hockey. We are in a hockey-rich environment. I'm going to guess if I go to some of those towns that you listed, if I worked there and I drove to work and I'm coming up a street that's on the backside of my building, I'm not going to see kids riding their bikes, going with the hockey stick over their handlebars. I'm going to guess if I go into those communities, because I know if I go into Moorhead, every park I go to in Moorhead in the winter has got 2 things in it. It's got just a skating area for little kids, and it's got a hockey rink. Every park in town has that. You can't step into many communities that have that. The other reason why I think it would be successful is I look at what the Fargo Force are doing right now, which is a USHL team that's playing in Shields Arena. They are significantly successful. A, they're winning, and B, they have people that are excited and coming to watch them, which again is just another indicator that people want to come and watch hockey. One of the things that we look at and why people are going, well, fully funded, how the amount of money is. One of the things that's been done extremely well with the Fargo Force is they have won. They're 3 years in. Their first year, and I could have this because I'm not a force expert. First year in, they compete for the Clark Cup. Second year in, they compete for the Clark Cup. They were named the Organization of the Year in the USHL. There are some great leadership going on within that organization, and it's a successful organization. And people like to be part of successful things. And that's where we look at this and people go, well, can't you graduate what you're doing scholarship-wise? And maybe you don't really need to raise that $37 million. But we want to step in and we want to be successful as quickly as we can, because people like to be affiliated with success. And to really make this work, we've got to be able to sell the tickets. Back to the question as well is, when you start to look at being successful, there are only 5,000 seats in Shields Arena. I believe that we can sell out a significant number of those. We're not dealing with the Ingolstadt type arena. When you look at hockey programs within our region that have struggled, it's been larger seat arenas. If you go down to UNO, one of their biggest challenges has been they signed a lease agreement, at least in my opinion, signed a lease agreement with the Quest Center, which is an unbelievable facility. So they go from where they'd been playing previously. They held 8,000 going to 16,000, and they just couldn't sell 16,000 tickets, which isn't an easy thing to do. So that's why I think we can be successful. This is a hockey-hungry town, and people don't realize what's here. If I could, well, I don't know if we can do this or not, Webby. Can we throw a trivia question out?
Sure.
Here's the trivia question right now. How many restaurants are in our Fargo-Moorhead area? Can anybody tell me? We'll see if anybody answers that. If not, Webby and I will play around with that a little bit. But I got to jump back to the list because it seems like I talked a lot about that last question. So here's a Twitter question. I think, again, I'm not sure how to read all this stuff. Tricks99. Do you believe adding Division I hockey makes MSUM more attractive for prospective students? Darn right I do. It's interesting for me is we have conversations, obviously, with our admissions department, and they do a tremendous job. They're all over the place. It's exciting to see. I got to go off on a tangent here for all of you that are out there watching. We were in a cabinet meeting the other day, and behind the scenes, we're planning our convocation for this year's start of the academic year. And one of the things that's happening is convocation is going to be held in the field house in Nemzik Hall for the first time in the history of the institution. And here's what's exciting. It's being held in Nemzik Hall because it's the only building on campus, it's the only room on campus that's big enough to hold our freshman class. So that's a shout out to Diane Solinger, Jeremy Johnson. I wish I could list everybody's names. Those are the ones I get to deal with on a daily basis, and the rest of our campus for our enrollment growing and having such large freshman classes. But as I have conversations with Jeremy and other people that are in the recruitment business, one of the questions that they get asked all the time is, do you have hockey? And students aren't asking if we have hockey because they want to play it. Yes, there are some that do. But students are asking if we have hockey because they want to watch it. They're interested in it. They followed it in high school. They're Wild fans. They want to go to a school that offers competitive Division I hockey. So yes, I think that helps us with the overall recruitment of general students. The other part that I will say, and I would challenge this, throw this challenge out there as well, of, when you start to think of the schools, and there are different ways people think, and I know I've got my blinders on because I'm an athletics guy, but there are different things that people think. And one of the common perceptions in the United States, in our country, is that if a university has a good athletic department or a strong football team or a strong basketball team, that they obviously, hey, they're good in sports. In sports, they're second to academics. That means they got to be really good in academics. And that's one of the reasons why the Chronicle of Higher Education, which is kind of the gold standard in higher education, that does a lot of different, that's the journal, does a lot of research projects, does a lot of articles, all that sort of stuff. But it's interesting, every year after a national championship, there's a story that's run, and so we'll talk about Butler and men's basketball. It was interesting they did an interview with the admissions people at Butler, and they were talking about how their admission, their influx of applicants was all-time high right after they got done with Final Four. That's what athletics can do for you. And people just have that perception, hey, they're good in this. I want to go there. I want to be part of that. They're successful here. There's an overriding feeling that institution is successful. I've always said that athletics is the front porch of the university. It's not the foundation of the house, but it is the first thing that most people see. And how does your front porch look? Because that's going to be your first impression. So jumping back over to another question. Wow, according to superpages.com, there are 237 restaurants are in the Fargo-Moorhead area. Did you just give me that answer, or did somebody send that in?
I found that.
Okay, so Webby found that. And I'm going to tell you a 2-minute warning, so I got one last question, and then I'll give the answer. Any plans for a future on-campus arena? It'd be nice to have it on or close to campus rather than driving to another state, even though it's only 10 or 15 minutes away. From TW Brain. You know, that's something that we look at in the long term. One of the wins out of this, Bruce Furnace talked about win, 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 win. One of the wins out of this is Shields Arena is up, it's new, it's operating, and it's trying to get it just like a baby, it's trying to learn how to walk. And as it's learning how to walk, it can use some help. And so in a perfect way, this gives us an opportunity to enhance that facility by starting out there. And our goal would be that we're successful and they're successful, and it raises the whole thing, but that ultimately the demand for ice time would lead us to, at some point, consider, if we're successful adding hockey, starting to look at an arena on the other side. The state of Minnesota does have a history of funding hockey rinks. When you look at what's happened, whether that will happen in the future or not, we all know we're in some budget challenges. Who knows? But yeah, there's the opportunity for that. Right now, though, I got to be honest, TW Brain, we're focused on just trying to get hockey started, not necessarily what's going to happen 10 or 15 years down the line, other than ensuring that it's sustainable and that if we do start it, we're going to have the plan and the resources so it'll be successful, so it will be here forever. Okay, so Webby, you talk about superpages.com, lists 237 restaurants in the Fargo-Moorhead area. If you go onto the Fargo-Moorhead Visitor and Convention Bureau side, they list over 350 restaurants. That's an amazing fact because most people don't think of we're here, we see it, we believe it. But as I've been working on some bids to trying to bring some national championships to our community, namely wrestling, and we're going to get that done, Coach Nelson and Steve Saxland, who's been working with us. It's interesting, the perception that we fight is, well, it's Fargo, there's nothing there. It's Moorhead, there's nothing there. Well, there are. The number of hotel rooms that we have available, the number of amenities, when you start talking over 350 restaurants, that there's 3 colleges and universities and a 2-year college and a variety of private ones. We've got around 30,000 college students running around. It's unbelievable what's going on in this community. And to us, we see it every day. So it's like our cousin that we see every day. Always the same. But when you're away from it and you come in and see it for the first time, it's like you haven't seen your cousin in 10 years and you've seen how much they've grown up. Fargo-Moorhead is an unbelievable community with a lot of things in it and that we take for granted. And people on the outside don't necessarily know it. And so part of it is telling our story. Webby, anything else you got for the end of this thing?
Nope, that's it.
That's it. All right, well, we're going to sign out. We'll be doing this again, whether it's hockey, whether it's not hockey, whether it's football, whether it's basketball, because I would love to be back in here starting the football season, and you can ask me for my evaluation of what Coach Lockway's got going out on the football field, what Coach Blake's got going on out there on the volleyball court, what Coach Barnier is going to be doing with cross country. I give him a hard time. He won the conference championship in men's track, both indoor and outdoor. We need some cross country ones again. So we'll be back. Not sure when we'll be back, but keep following us on Twitter, Facebook. Come to our website. We've got unbelievable stories going on, and we're doing our best to tell them to you. Thank you for tuning in today and for all the questions.